I'm now live. Cool. I need to touch this button and then look for Emma and Ina. Okay. Send requests. And then. Hi.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
One more day in paradise. Okay, and comments are going to be off because the hearts and everything, especially in the screen size, is going to get crazy busy. So I want to add. Can we change the title name? I goofed on that. Because I want to put questions in DMs because I don't like the comments like just get super busy and whatever, and I don't want that like with all the hearts and emojis and such, especially like I honestly like I haven't been on Instagram since 2016 maybe, and so like I was thinking I could just do this on my laptop, and no, I can't. So
Yeah.
I'd like to change the name of the room. Ina can't join. Let's try that again.
I don't have any options to change anything from my end.
Okay, but do you have access to like the comments and questions and everything else?
Comments are off, and there is a ask a question
Okay, cool.
button. Okay. Juno is doing her thing as per usual.
Do the questions go straight to DMs? Like I'm trying to minimize the amount of noise on the screen.
I'm not too sure. I think it says if I ask something, what happens?
Yeah, find out. Because I want questions routed to DMs, so there's not much like chaos on the screen, especially if Ina comes and joins in.
Let's see. I'll ask a question.
Cool. Clickety clickety. Ina can't join again. Come on, Ina.
She might not be available. Like maybe she's.
Oh, okay. Like the invite time's out.
Maybe, I don't know.
Can you send her a text and ask if she's trying?
Yes.
Yes. We technically have 2 minutes still before we're actually officially live. So let's do that. I see a chat bubble or like a notification for a question on my end. Did you see that too?
Nope.
You don't. This is inconvenient. You're supposed to help post. Okay, so we'll catch up on those questions later because we do have an assortment of questions by DMs and whatnot as well. Just check with Ina really fast, otherwise we'll dive into things. I really wish I knew how to change the name of the thing. It makes me upset. I guess we could close the room and reopen it, but I don't like that. So, but yeah, we'll give it a minute and then we will dive in. Turn off requests to go live, turn off questions, copy link, share. No, that's fine. Everything's fine. How's your arm, by the way?
It's a bit sore.
Yeah.
For those watching, I broke my arm on my bike yesterday.
Yeah. And both of us got our vaccines too.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
happened to be the same arm for me.
Perfect. Who wants to go first about who's feeling how after a vaccine?
Well, I'm pretty sick. I have had like flu-like symptoms, a fever, just not feeling great. But first Instagram live in the history of my account, and I'm pretty much at my worst.
I haven't been on, like I said, Instagram since 2016-ish. And for me, when it comes to the vaccine, I literally, it's just like somebody walked up and just gave me a really cheap shot in the arm, and that was it. Like, just like last time too, where everyone's like, "Oh, I'm turning inside out." Sorry. Okay, it's 7 bells. I really wish I could have changed the name again. That's my own fault for not being able to set this up the way that I expected. But we'll just continue to repeat this after every question or whatever. Questions go by DMs. which would be preferred. Emma is going to be hosting for us. Ina, if and when, excuse me, she shows up, will also be participating with that. And mainly because for myself, and the reason why the comments are off is I like, especially with the size of the screens and whatnot, as much as I respect all the love and the gratitude, 1,000 hearts and whatnot and emojis is just going to be like visible chaos, right? Because our goal is to not have this incredibly long, especially considering that it's been a rough day, right? Like, it's been a rough day, and I'm very, very conscious about am I not feeling well after a vaccine, and everyone else's time. So you do have a list of questions already, Emma. So how about you just get us started while I figure out why this bracket fell apart?
Okay. So the first question I have for you is, how has transitioning impacted how you daydream? Do you find that you daydream more or less than before? And is it more vivid or less vivid?
That's an awesome question. I guess just to really quickly introduce, I should have jumped out of the gate right away. My name is Taylor. I'm 40 years old. I'm a trans woman. And I came out incredibly abruptly last year. In summer of 2020, I came out super abruptly because of our global social climate. And as a matter of fact, there was a police officer who just got tagged with 20 plus years for his participation in what was setting the world inside out. On a note, I'm hearing feedback. Do you hear feedback?
Nope.
Okay, everything sounds fine on your end? Because it doesn't sound fine on my end. Okay. I trust you. Okay, so anyway, like I said, I came out super abruptly. Anybody who knows me knows that already. So answering the question, has it affected my daydreaming? I was very much a daydreamer in a past life, and a lot of it was just imagining a little more freedom, right? Like just feeling like, how would I be able to do this current situation that I'm in later? Whether I'd be working late at the office or whatever else it would be, it would just like, what would work be like if I came out? And that like most of everything of all of my daydreaming was, what would this situation be like if I allowed myself to come out? So what has my daydreaming been like since? It's been a lot more just like goal oriented, which is great. Like, I remember I was telling you way back when I'd be on the treadmill, and honestly, I'm on the treadmill and I'd be on the treadmill for half an hour, and all I'm thinking about is hitting home runs. Right? Like, it's the only thought in my head of just like achieving goals, right? The next project that I have to do, this accomplishment, that accomplishment, and it's just like I'm working on gains, and it's just been a lot more peaceful with my daydreams.
That's really interesting. I can definitely see where that would come from. And I think that was a really great question to ask. The next is kind of a funny one. What is your go-to karaoke song?
Oh boy.
Because we know you're the karaoke queen.
And we haven't even had a chance to do any karaoke because COVID. I love singing. I do not say that I sing well, but I love to sing. I really don't know what my library is going to look like going forward because I really don't know. But what's funny is, I'll even be like full disclosure with my voice. When I came out, like I said, abruptly, I also shook off a lot of those feelings if I need to sound like this or look like this or act like this or whatever. And in the back of my head, I feel like, especially when I was starting to like get ready for social transitioning and be like, okay, learn some like Biff Naked, right? Or learn some Alanis Morissette, or, just songs like that. But then also I'm like, I like to go back to what I'm used to. I like where I used to haunt. It was like Boot Scoot and Boogie was always one to go to. I'd easily jump into Garth Brooks. Snapback was something that I was really comfortable with. Big surprise that I just landed in a country. And that was a lot of what I sang. But like instant comfort, like I said, could be something like boot scoot and boogie, and it's fun because people dance. And that's something that I really enjoyed out of that too. The fact that it wasn't just singing to a bunch of tables. People would jump in and actually participate, which just made it even more
That's
fun.
nice. I really like that.
Yeah.
It's a good time. And then the last question from this person is, if you could go back in time 10 years, what is one piece of advice you would give yourself?
Just fucking do it.
Yeah.
Especially because 10 years ago is a really good benchmark for when I separated or started to separate with my wife or my future ex-wife. Thinking about it ish. Yeah, no, thinking about it because I just turned 40 and I remember I was just turning 30, or I was just going into turning 30 when her and I were separating. And a lot of it was in the back of my head where I was still trying to just discover myself. And not to say that being trans was related to what led to our marriage failing, but it absolutely led to me just being not as, I didn't allow myself as a person to be vulnerable, right? Yeah. And by that also compromised our relationship because I spent so much time trying to suppress my reality. And so because of that, it certainly affected just the quality of relationship. And then furthering from there, just my 30s was supposed to be my time to like, okay, here's your you time. And even then I still wasn't accepting my own reality and thinking that, okay, just learn from your marriage and just, you'll end up falling in love, right? And everything goes away. Everything doesn't go away, by the way, right? It doesn't work like that. And so 10 years ago, it would have been just do it. But then also, which is super cliche to say, but also there will be like people who love you, right? Regardless if it's intimate love, friendship love, whatever, there are people who will love you and accept you. It's not going to be an easy ride. It's not. It never will be, not at this rate. And that's what I'm trying to work towards to help change, to help normalize the experience for next generations of kids. But just fucking do it. I also will say I have no regrets for the path that I took because I wouldn't be the person that I am if I did not go through life the way that I did. But also knowing that for 10 years or 10 additional years, I hung on to, I just can't. The world's not going to accept me or whatever, is something that I wish I could go back in time and hit myself over the head with a newspaper with, right? Because you can't wait for other people to make room for you. You have to make the room yourself.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Yeah, that's really impactful because, yeah, like, I mean, obviously you probably have that mindset now looking back, but it's different at the time, right? Like, you were afraid, and that is, I'm sure, how every single trans person has ever felt before.
Our world is much better than it was before. It's just at the same time, I can tell you, like, firsthand experience, sometimes the authenticity of support is questionable, right? Where it's like, are you looking at my needs as a person, or are you looking at my needs as your technical social responsibility? And that's a huge difference between like how you feel you're accepted.
Yeah. And those are some lessons that you learned along the way.
Yeah.
Especially recently.
Very recently.
So if we're ready for the next question, what would you say is the best and the worst part of being a visibly transgender woman? And I'm just going to quickly turn off my camera for 1 second.
Sure. That's such a small picture. Okay, best and worst part of being visibly trans? That's actually a great question. At the same time, incredibly loaded, because from my perspective, and I want to underline that with my experience, I'm absolutely, like, especially the subjective questions like best and worst, there's no way that I could say that and speak on behalf of everybody. No question. Because best in what context and worst in what context? Best, I feel happy. I feel happy. It's the best part of being a trans woman and being a visible trans woman. And happy is easy for me to say, and to add the context with that is to know and to say to society that no matter what you are trying to pigeonhole gender as, I'm me. And I'm going to continue being me. And if that means I'm a visible trans woman, whatever, I am me. And I am happy, and I am happier than I've ever been before than trying to fit the role that was suggested. The worst part about being a visible trans woman is, I wouldn't really call it the worst, because to me there's no worse. I've never been as happy as I am. Every day is amazing, and every day I'm stronger and better. That said, it doesn't mean that it's not an easy ride. And so the worst part of being a visible trans woman, and I really love that the phrasing that shows whoever used those words, they know, right? And that's fantastic. So huge props to whoever phrased it like that. It's easy to get stigmatized is the word I'm looking for. But anyway, right? Like it's easy for biases to automatically come in. Because if like all of a sudden you present on the cusp of what would be considered a social norm for gender or whatever, and so the assumptions and the biases and whatever just automatically show up, especially if you're looking at somebody who's bigoted. And and it's funny because you can have a trans individual who, for all intents and purposes, you wouldn't know, and that same bigot would treat them like one of the boys or one of the girls.
Yeah.
So that is, it is, and I wouldn't call it the worst part of being visibly trans. It is one of the most upsetting parts that society imposes.
It's a good way to put it. Yeah.
Yeah. But like I said, that is a super subjective question as well, because other people might say their body feels liberated, or the worst part is they might have a lifetime of prescription. Right? Like there's so many different ways of looking at it. So that's where I would go with it.
Yeah, I think that was a really good question, and it highlights, I mean, obviously it's nice to know what the best thing about it is, and I think that's great that you are so certain in yourself and what that is, and I think that you did a really good job answering what the worst part is.
That question was phrased awesomely, so huge props to whoever did that.
Oh, I like this question. Who is your biggest role model, female or not?
Me. It's you know what? I hate saying it, but me, right? Because I can look at a lot of it and see how fast I answered that too. But like
instantly,
I can look at other people and respect accomplishments that they've made, and everyone's had their own journeys, and I don't know what brought them to where they are, right? And you never know what's told, especially if it's shared by media, because like media is only going to share what is sensational anyway. There's so many parameters of when you're looking at somebody, are you seeing everything? And that's not to say that don't ever have a role model.
No, that's really true.
Yeah, I'm definitely not saying don't ever have a role model, because I can absolutely use something like sports. And if there's an athlete that you know that I want to be as successful at fill in the blank, you'd be like, that's the world's greatest goal scorer, that's the best home run hitter, that's the best gold, right? And it's like, so like, what are they doing? And you can emulate that. But for me to stomp through life starts and ends with me respecting myself and my abilities, and reflecting on my own achievements, and finding out. I know it's a super cliche and cheap answer, but I can agree that there are a billion influential and inspirational people, but for role models, I've never had somebody postered on my wall, ever.
Yeah, and I think you bring up a good point about the fact that kind of using someone as an icon kind of sets you up for disappointment, because you're totally right, is that you can't know someone like that completely. And so, yeah, I mean, it's easy to say that it's yourself because you know yourself best, and I think that that's a really good thing about you, is that you are proud of yourself and you're happy and you're so strong, and it's so obvious to the people around you. And yeah.
I get humbled when, and I hear it, and I feel incredibly humbled when people tell me that I'm a role model to them, and it means a lot because I understand the position of a role model, and I do my best to be that person for others. There's no way I can ever be the best person for everybody because it's just tangibly impossible.
Impossible, yeah.
But to know that people see what I do and they look up to me means a ton. And like I said, that's just language I've never used. That said, I should correct myself. Like, there are single moms that I know that I've said I look up to you because of what they're able to achieve.
No, it's
I
insane.
I can't ever say that they're my role model, but they absolutely stun me with what they're able to pull off.
Yeah.
And just as an example, it's funny though, if I can jump in when you said 2016, when you were mentioning about icons, because it just reminded me of 2016 where like every celebrity was diddling somebody. I'm just like, can we just stop touching people for just a couple weeks? Can everybody just keep them hands to themselves for just a moment? And like the amount of icons that were breaking hearts because they were idolizing these individuals, and you find out they're diddling somebody, like, oh.
Yeah,
and then you just find something in the news is like, you see like a headline starting with Tom Hanks, and it's like, please not Tom Hanks, please not Tom Hanks, right? And it's just like, not him, just don't, please not him, right?
I've seen a few headlines that are jokes like that, like,
yeah,
Tom Hanks exposed for being a great person to
yeah,
being a, like,
yeah, and it's just like the first words are like, don't take that away from
but they
us.
do it on purpose to like scare you.
For sure. Yeah, but yeah, no, it's like there's I bet there's a lot of cliche answers that people would have expected, but my role model, there's no role model, there's no person out there who would have pushed me out the door but me.
Mm-hmm. So I guess I have a follow-up question to that. Who would you say inspires you?
That's actually an awesome question. And I can't answer that because especially with where life is right now, everything's kind of by the seat of my pants. So it's really difficult to look at someone else's very similar life experience. But I'm gonna put her on the spot. I'm gonna say Lacey. Because Lacey's a friend of mine, and she's a single mom. Mm-hmm. And I get inspired by what single moms are able to achieve. And even when I was going through crisis last year, like end of 2019, beginning of 2020, and just trying to get my bearings, and she's the first one that I can think of, and other close friends of mine too who were able to just overcome crazy challenges, like Lauren, and just personal friends, right, who have their own, they've got their own stories and they still manage to keep charging forward. And like, that's the way that I look at it, because it's like they can't stop for their own, like they've got their own reasons to keep going.
Yeah.
And if I have to keep going and they're able to keep going, right, like it's easy to like I said, just look at some close friends and see what they're able to continue doing. Ash, for example, I'm gonna miss her, she's moving, but she's always run into some sort of obstacle and it's just walked over it. Like, sure, it's not like it was easy or anything like that, but every time that she's had adversity, it's just, okay, figure it out and move on.
Yeah.
And so it's people like those who inspire me, that just they don't they don't allow themselves to be like, I can't, because there's no I can't. It's like, fuck, I'll figure it out. It might not be what I want, but I'll figure it out. And I have an insane amount of respect for that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's so important to surround yourself with people who do inspire you, who push you, and who are, you know, your biggest asset, in the sense that they push you to be a better person, and they keep you accountable, and they're there for you. And I think that takes a lot of like mindfulness to surround yourself with those types of people, because it's so easy to just be friends with people because you've known them forever. It's convenient. But I think that's really important, and especially in your scenario, like obviously you are incredibly strong and independent, but you still need a support system.
Yeah, it's like every day's a ride for everybody. Simply put, every day is a ride for everybody. Even I've known people that were like I'm like, you're too, like, how do I phrase it? I'm like, you're too happy. Like you're robot, right? Like it's like, what's up, right? Like, you know what I mean? Where it's like,
Yeah.
come on to you, right? And it's funny when you even find out that they've got their own business too, which is okay. But like I said, everybody's got something. It's not always something, and it's not always forever, but everyone's got their ups and downs, and they have to push.
Mm-hmm. So I think we have time for one more question, because we're going to try to keep this series pretty short. However, if you did send in questions, then we'll get around to them another time. Hoping to do this maybe weekly or bi-weekly, and I think it's just a really good way to, whether you're, you know, cis or queer or even a trans person, just to hear a perspective from another trans person, because I think that it's just obviously not available in the society that we live in right now. And so when we have the possibility and the opportunity, I think we should take it. So this one I really like. What is one thing you wish cis people or cisgender people understood? It's a tough one, but it's a good one.
What is one thing? First, I want to jump in while I try to think of a good answer for that. But I'm gonna expand, or I'm gonna qualify that question in just a little bit. But I want to expand on what you were saying earlier about having this as a routine thing. Time does fly by. I'm actually amazed that it's already been 20 minutes, because for me it feels like it's only been 5.
Yeah.
But in respect to everybody's time, right, we don't want this to be hours long. And also, in fairness, I'm going to put Emma on the spot, right? Vaccine kind of rocked her, and the whole falling off the bike thing and everything. It's, I know somebody needs a nap soon. But we will absolutely keep these questions and carry on, whether it's going to be like a regular Friday night thing, or maybe even like a Sunday evening thing or something, or we'll figure out a good regular time to do something like this so everybody can just tune in regularly and talk to Taylor. What is one thing that I wish cisgender people understood? That is such a difficult question, because how do I put it?
How do you choose one thing?
Well, it's not even about the one thing, but it's like trying to figure out what I wish was understood, because to try to phrase it, I've never had a cisgender brain. I've never, like, it's kind of tongue in cheek, but especially with the whole "am I trans" questions lots of people have, cis people don't ask that question, right? Like, right? Like, it's to ever get to that point of questioning your gender is not really a cis thing typically. No, not even fucking typically. Cis people don't ask like, "Am I in the right body?" That's just not a question. So, what would I wish then? I get, honestly, I guess that's probably a really good way to put it. There's a lot between the ears, that just cannot be translated. And honestly, this is something that can actually even evolve like as an intersectional piece. And let's even just call it a like, what were those things at like the end of Teddy Ruxpin where it'd be like the moral of the story thing? But right, but like you can articulate your feelings and your thoughts the best that you can. You can have you can articulate your words perfectly, and you can explain it objectively, how it impacts your life. You can do all the things to verbalize and to create the best tangible explanation of what is going on right now. But the one thing that never, ever, ever gets translated is the emotion, right? The actual internal feeling of this is what's happening right now, regardless if you're explaining happiness, anger, frustration, fear, or whatever, that your body's reaction is something you will never, ever, ever be able to communicate in a way that who you're communicating to is going to 100% get.
Mm-hmm.
If that makes sense. And it's not even about being lost in translation. It literally cannot be transferred.
Yeah.
And so when a trans person says something to a cis person from a trans perspective, don't question it. Right? You're welcome, pardon me. You're welcome to question it to understand better.
Yeah.
But don't validate it.
Right.
Because there is a, even comparing like to like with another individual cut from the same cloth, you might be able to share very similar experiences and whatnot. But to that X factor of what goes on in a trans person's head about their belonging, because the world isn't as kind as we like to think it is, full stop. And so there's a lot of inside conversation sometimes. If I can share an awesome analogy, this will be my own experience. I can't speak on behalf of anybody else, but this is my own experience. And I saw this on a TED Talk, which was an awesome analogy. There was a subject or student or whatever who was put on a stage and needed to solve a problem on the screen or whatever. And it was just a basic, I think it was a basic math and English problem, and just needed to like combine the answers or whatever, right? And so while this person was going through the problem solving, various individuals started coming up to that subject and started speaking into their ears, just talking, just conversation, no topic, no nothing, but it was just noise. And then another person, and then another person, and another person. And all the while, this subject needed to finish that question, right? So there's a lot of extra conversation just about, like for me at the time, my head is as clear gets now. It's unbelievable. It's like draining fluid from a swollen knee. It's just the relief of not having those questions anymore, that taunting me. But to share an experience and then a cis person be like, really? I'm like, yeah, fucking really. Doesn't mean you need to click with it, but you have to understand that it's something that you will never understand unless you experience it yourself. And like I said, that's intersectional because there's experiences other people have that I'll never understand.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right? Like I'm white. Straight up. I'll never understand firsthand what racism feels like.
Yeah.
Right? But I do the best that I can to understand, but I would never invalidate what somebody describes their experience like. So it's those types of things where if there's one thing that I wish cis people would understand is that when a trans person shares their feelings about something, do not validate if what you think they're saying is right or not, because they know what being trans is like better than you.
Yeah.
Just a hunch. Cool.
All right. Well, I think we can wrap it up there. Thank you for everyone who has attended. We'll be posting this to our HD TV, so it'll be available to watch at any time. And we're looking forward to doing some more chats like this. I think it's, like I said, really educational, and it's really good for me just as a cis woman to hear more and to understand more of your perspective. But thank you so much, Taylor, for your time. Really appreciate it. You're amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, this was great, and like I said, we'll you and me, let's figure out a good schedule so we can make this a regular thing and we can post that. And I straight up, I'm not gonna lie, I'm running this ship here and I have no idea what I'm doing, so I hope I don't wreck anything. But we will make sure to capture any remaining questions, continue to add those to the pile, and do this on a regular.
All right, take care,
All right.
everybody.
Bye.
Bye.